Just minutes from now, 7 European leaders will begin arriving over at the White House for a critically important meeting with President Trump and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They will discuss a possible end to Russia's war on Ukraine, and the stakes once again are clearly monumental. All this comes just days after President Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and as the president appears to be pressuring Ukraine to strike a peace deal with Russia 3.5 years after its illegal invasion of Ukraine. I want to discuss all that and more with the New York Times opinion columnist Thomas Friedman. He's the author of several major best-selling books, including From Beirut to Jerusalem. Tom, thanks so much for joining us on this important day. It's a critical day for Ukrainian and European security all around. And President Trump posted this on social media last night. Let me put it up on the screen. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. What does that tell you about President Trump's mindset right now heading into these all-important new round of meetings?
Well, he easily could have written a tweet that said President Putin can end the war right now by getting out of Ukraine and stopping raping the country next door. So what it tells me is that we have a president who is kind of neutral between the rapist and his victim. And I find that very troubling going into this. But Trump is so mercurial and can shift on a dime. I mean, just a week ago, he was talking about punishing sanctions on Putin, that we don't know where he stands. And Wolf, that's the core problem. We don't know where the president of the United States stands on an issue of a country invading its neighbor and ally in Europe and threatening the rest of Europe. And that's deeply troubling. So going into this meeting, I would say one out of three things can happen. One is Trump basically decides that Putin won't give him, Zelensky won't give him what he wants, so he washes his hands of it. The other is Trump decides that he's going to impose Putin's conditions on Zelensky, and Zelensky will, of course, resist. And the third, which we've never heard from Trump, is that he defines what he believes is the outcome in Ukraine that is in America's values and interests. And what that would be, I believe, a kind of ceasefire in place where the United States and its European allies guarantee the future security of Ukraine in a very tangible way, that Ukraine cannot be invaded by Russia again, and that Ukraine be fast-tracked into the European Union, not NATO, into the European Union. What would that do, Wolf? It would, first of all, ensure that Ukraine can never be invaded again by Russia. And if Ukraine joins the European Union, it would be, to me, the ultimate punishment for Putin. He would have to wake up every day, look across the border, and see a successful, westernizing, modernizing Slavic Ukraine next to his kleptocratic, declining Slavic Russia. And that would be in America's interests and values. Whether Trump lands there, I have no idea.
As you know, Tom, President Trump has now publicly abandoned his demand that Putin agree to a ceasefire after Friday's summit. Trump has been on the defensive, slamming critics of the summit on social media. What's your assessment of who benefited from that Trump-Putin meeting?
You know, it was really all optics, Wolf. It certainly looked to me that, Putin benefited. He felt comfortable there. After all, he is an indicted war criminal, warmly embraced by the president, breaking out of his isolation. No question that Putin, got a sugar high from it. But what really matters is what happens, today and in the next few weeks. What matters is not who Putin is. We know who Putin is. What matters is who is Donald Trump. Is he a traditional American president aligned with our Western allies in Europe, or is he basically someone disconnected from those values? And it's very disturbing that we even have to ask that question, Wolf, but we do.
Several key European leaders, as you know, are joining President Zelensky here in Washington today. How do you ultimately see this playing out? How likely is it that we will see an end to this war as a result of these current discussions?
Well, that would be, these current discussions can't end the war. Obviously, what you need now is a consensus Western stand on what the outcome of the war should be, which I believe is some kind of permanent ceasefire in place, but with Western security guarantees that Russia can never again invade Ukraine and will not be rewarded with any more territory than it's already stolen, and integrating the EU into the West, because that is what would basically make a smaller Ukraine more integrated, more secure, and more prosperous. And ultimately, that is what would really punish Putin.
While I have you, Tom, I want to quickly turn to the Middle East. Over the weekend, as you know, hundreds of thousands of Israelis held some of the largest protests since the start of the war in Gaza. They're demanding an end to the war and a deal to free the remaining hostages. But is there any reason to think these protests will have any impact on Prime Minister Netanyahu's plans to expand the war and to go into Gaza and occupy Gaza City?
Unlikely, Wolf. The only vote that Netanyahu would care about is from Donald Trump. And Trump seems to have basically given him a green light to go into Gaza and to try to destroy Hamas militarily and extract the hostages, which very few experts believe is possible. You probably can't do either one. Doing two together will probably be impossible. And that's what those protests were about.
Yeah, a huge, huge protest throughout Israel. Maybe 1 million Israelis all over the country, not just in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but all over the country protesting right now. Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, thank you very, very much.